There we go. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see so many of you who have joined for this webinar this afternoon. I'm confident we're going to go above, way above 200 participants ultimately. The number is increasing. My name's Neil McIntosh, and I'm the project manager for a project called LIFEeNatura 2000.edu, or LIFEedu for short. I work for the Europark Federation, and Europark is based in Germany, but we work internationally. We were founded by our members, many of whom are protected area authorities, and their purpose really in creating the Federation was to enable us to network, exchange ideas, to inform nature conservation policy, to look at practical ways to manage nature's biodiversity, but also with respect to its culture and traditions, and very much focus on sustainable ways to work with nature, people and society. So we'll provide a link in the chat, so you can always go onto Europark's website and find out more information about us. And also we'll put on the link about the project as well, LIFEedu. Okay, it's my great pleasure to hand over to Patricia Puig, who is from Barcelona, a marine biologist by profession. And Patricia made contact with us very early, and we've been in dialogue since that initial contact. So we actually have a significant interest in marine protected areas. We also had a webinar as part of this same series about 4 weeks ago. But the demand was so great, it's fantastic that we have another opportunity to look at the specific requirements of marine protected area management. Okay, so without further ado, Patricia, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here, being part of this workshop. And I'm going to share my screen. Before, when you were talking, it crashed my Zoom. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but I will reconnect if it happens. So let's share first. It might go a bit on delay, let's see. I will hide this so you can see the full screen. I imagine that you can see now.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, so as I say, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of this supporting and learning and capacity building for Natura 2000 managers. I'm happy also to talk about protecting our marine environment. Since I was a kid, I was passionate on the marine environment, but it's also very linked to the terrestrial environment. So it's important to consider both parts when you are talking about protected areas or marine protected areas. So what I'm going to focus today is about the specific capacities that you need and skills that you need for working in these special places, but can be any place. And I'm going to talk about a particular case study in a remote island in the middle of the Atlantic. But I'm sure that you can find many commonalities, even though it's a very particular case study. And I will also talk about our network, marine protected area on the Mediterranean Sea, where we have a capacity building program very similar than yours. So I'm very happy also to share that. Let's start. Let me see if I can pass the screen. Yeah, okay. So as Neil said before, you can ask me anytime, and questions, you can write it in there. I will not see the message box, but if there is any question that is relevant for the moment, you can ask me. And so write a message, and also we can talk at the end. And at the end, I would like that you share your challenge. So think in your particular case study, your protected area, your marine protected area, and a particular challenge, and how do you cope the challenge, and which skills you think you need the most for that. It would be very interesting to share that with you, and that you share with me. And yes, and enjoy this virtual trip that we're going to do today. Yeah, my name is Patricia Marti Puch, and I'm also the manager and founder of marine environmental consultancy that is called Oceanogamy. Yes, as I say, I'm a marine scientist, but over the last years, I became more, we can say, social scientist. I'm very interested on the social science and the part of the stakeholder engagement, particularly in marine protected areas, and connected different sectors to arrive to common objective that is protecting our seas, our oceans. And now we are first going to travel to the deep ocean. This is actually the deep sea of the Galapagos Marine Reserve, where I was working some years ago. And there it's really amazing how many things there are still to discover in the oceans, particularly in the deep sea, where we have identified new species, new registers for the Galapagos. So all the scientists that collaborate with us and taxonomists were really motivated with that. And also the potential benefits that can have a part of the amazing biodiversity and the things that you can discover. The direct benefits to society or indirect benefits to society, such is, for example, biomedicine. And just to give an example, now that we are talking, it's the only time that I'm going to talk about COVID. Then later we're going to disconnect a bit. But this is really interesting because applications that can have this, the marine conservation, and in general to protect our wildlife and marine life. This is on the right side, you can see an image of an hydrothermal vent. So this is an environment, a particular environment in the deep sea. I guess you saw some documentaries about where there is very high temperatures and very high pressures. So the organisms that they live there, they live in very extreme conditions. And there are some bacteria that can survive in these remote places and very extreme temperatures. And actually the scientists some years ago in 1980s, they extracted from the bacteria an enzyme that actually what it does is the DNA polymerase is the name, and what it does, thermate polymerase, what it does is replicate the DNA and RNA, making many copies. So this is what we use actually for doing the PCR. This is the polymerase change reaction. And this is what is done nowadays to do the test to detect if we have or no the coronavirus, one of the tests that we are doing. So there has many applications, but unfortunately, we are impacting our oceans so much with the, for example, with the non-sustainable tourism or climate change, pollution, plastics, ocean acidification. There is non-sustainable fishing as well. So that's why we work, all of us, we work in protected area, most of us in protected areas or marine protected areas, because we have the hope that managing these marine or terrestrial ecosystems, we can preserve it for the future generations, and we can also have a benefit from it. We also have to consider, the people to have food and to have basic things from resources from the oceans and the terrestrial habitats. The target for 2020 was set 10%, and actually, so by the CBD, and then this says 10% of coastal and marine areas are conserved through effective and equitably managed, ecologically representative and well-connected systems. So it's not only to protect it, it's also to manage them well. So this is the most challenging one. That is not just a paper MPA, so it's a marine protected area or protected area that works. And we have reached half of this 10%. And nowadays, they are increasing a lot of marine protected areas, so it's really good timing for that. And in 2014, the World Past Conservation Congress recommended to increase it to 30% in 2030. So this is also quite challenging to arrive to this percentage. From my point of view, everything should be managed, but this is an ideal world. And then, but at least to reach this 30%, and they are really working, that's MPAs, no? So I think it's more challenging, and we are talking about that challenges. And we are going to talk about today about one of the unimplemented or proposed MPA, that is the Ascension Island. So let's go to a second trip and start this MPA challenge. This is Ascension Island in Marine Protected Area, and it's located in a very remote place in the middle of the Atlantic, between South Africa, Africa, and Brazil. So, and actually it's so remote that nowadays, right now there are no flights, but when it's a few months ago, there was like one flight per month, okay? And only local people could go there, no tourists, because they're repairing the road for the plane. And that will take actually a couple of years. So until a couple of years, in 2 years from now, in theory, there will be more tourism. Right now, in normal times, we can say there's tourism from boats, etc., but not land-based tourism. But no worries, it's been a bit isolated, but it's quite a nice place. I'm going to see some pictures right now. And the most dangerous animals are the donkeys, the sharks, so nothing to be afraid of. So as I say, it's a very, very tiny island. It's just 91 square kilometers. This is the size of Monaco or Formentera, in case you know the Balearic Islands. And this island is also an UK overseas territories. So it's part of a big project called Blue Belt Program, where they have set to implement several marine protected areas in the UK overseas territories, and this is one of them. And this is one of the biggest marine protected areas in the Atlantic, and so the island is very tiny, but the marine protected area is huge, so this is one of the challenges, no? And it's 400,000 square kilometers. This is like twice the size of the UK. And it has been declared as a marine protected area in 2019, so last year. And all commercial fishing and mineral extraction is banned. There are just 800 residents, mainly they're from the military, from the government. And there is very limited tourism, as I say. Sport fishing, it will be the main tourism activity and the one that probably is causing more impact. Or will cause as well more impact, because there are some local companies, 3 or 4, not many, but also foreign companies that they go to fish there, and right now there is no regulation implemented for that. And there's also the recreational fisheries, so the local people, they don't have much to do there because there is no much there, no much developed. It's a working island, so usually the people just stay there for 2 years and go, so then their hobby is recreational fisheries. And as I was mentioning that a bit before, so these are the main stakeholders that we can find there in this island, and also outside the island. And the local government and the military, they're quite strong, and we can say there are 2 areas. One's where the UK military base, then the US military base. It's also an US from the United States military base. And there is another one that, another village, we can say, or settlement, that the local government is there. Basically, the people who is there is with a contract, so there is no proper locals, but some people have born in the island. There is one school, so there's a bit, community as well, and everybody knows each other. So it's really, maybe a different place where you have worked before, but you can compare it to a small village, no? Then most of the local government, people from the local government and the military, they also do recreational fishing as a hobby, so this is related. And sport fishing is the other big one. The other tourism is very low, not so much developed right now. And also we need to consider the local community, like the schools and the families from the people who work there. The researchers also, not many, but some researchers, they really want to work there because it's quite a pristine place, and it's good to do studies such as biodiversity studies, climate change. So different things researchers are really keen on, or in studying endemic species or very rare species. And also we need to consider the external funders, who are the ones who are sustaining actually the marine protected area, because being such a big marine protected area and not having the sustainable, we can say, from the tourism, it needs to be, there need to be external funders for this, for the management and monitoring. So one of the challenges, as I was saying, it was like a very remote marine protected area, and the MPA size is really big. Now I'm going to put a short overview of this is from the Global Fishing Watch. And we can see here the boats that they are fishing. And we can see I don't know if you see the circle in the middle is the marine protected area, and there's some dots that they go sometimes, like now. And you can see when the boats go to fish there. It's really good because it's an open source, and it's with satellite data from a satellite system. And but since the marine protected area was settled, you cannot see any boats there fishing. So you can see here now they will be over every 6 months from 2017 until 2020. It will go. So when it arrives, we can go keep it farther here. When the MPA was declared, there's almost no. I only saw like one. This is actually a Spanish boat, but nothing else. So yeah, no, this is, but it's important to have these skills to manage these marine protected areas. These huge marine protected areas is really challenging. Now, thanks to the new technologies, now we are able to monitor. So it's good to be aware of the new technologies, how they are developing, etc. Other challenge that we found there is like you need to be a realistic marine protected area management plan, a monitoring plan. Sometimes we want to protect so many things or to monitor so many things, but we need to select, and not only for the we can say the biology or the ecology. So you have to also consider the other aspects that they are equally important, the social or cultural aspects. So, and fisheries. So then here, for example, in Ascension Island, it's quite famous because there are quite a lot of Galapagos sharks. There's a big population of Galapagos sharks. Also the marine turtles, the green turtle, which there are thousands of turtles every year nesting there that they come all the way to Brazil. And this is also a challenge because they not only stay there, they also go to Brazil. So you need also to collaborate with other marine protected areas or establish like a network for protection, because you are only protected like one part of the cycle, we can say, of that species. The birds, they're actually, most of them stay within the MPA, but they also, of course, they go away. And but they feed there, they feed in the marine protected area, and they nest there. And you also need to consider also the endemic species. There are many invasive plants there. And for example, and also consider terrestrial species such as the land crab that reproduce into the sea. So everything like is connected, no? Also considering the terrestrial part. And the other challenge that we found is I'm going to talk a bit more deep about, because I think it's particularly important to have sustainable activities such as the tourism that could support the MPA, the marine protected area. There is not much tourism developed, also because it's quite very remote and very limited facilities. Right now, there is only one hotel that is not working at the moment, but there is one hotel, and not so much information we can say or for tourists. So but there is a lot of opportunities there, like for example, promoting this cultural heritage and natural heritage. And I think the Ascension Island has a lot of potential because the history is very, very interesting. There's even a couple of books published in the history of this island. And there's also, so a part of the story is like the British, they conquered the island because Napoleon was prisoner in the other island, in St. Helena, in the neighborhood island, which is also a marine protected area. And then to avoid that he escaped to Ascension Island, they also conquered this island. But at the beginning, nobody was interested to conquer this island because there is no resources like water, fresh water, or basic things we can say to survive. So it's very hard, a very harsh environment to survive. It's like a volcanic, it's like a rock in the middle of the ocean, you can say, But all the history is really, really interesting. And also the natural heritage, all the species that they barely had contacts with people. So you have birds colonies, you have the turtles. So promoting that, I think that, you know, you can try to make like a sustainable MPA promoting that kind of tourism that is less impacting into the marine environment. Because the one that is right now promoted, and it's also good economically speaking, as beneficially, is the sport fishing. But at the same time, it has quite a lot of impact in the marine environment. So this needs to be regulated. So one of the things that we were working on, it was to establish a license system to monitor what species are fish. Here we have an example of swordfish. They also fish tuna, other big fishes. And then to establish a system, a license system, and also monitor the size and how much species. So they fish. So then also we engage also the fishermen to collect data for science, no? And this is really important. But for that, sometimes you need to try to talk the same language and try to understand. So these skills are really necessary to get into the place of the other. And sometimes it's really hard, because when I see this picture that you may see right now, I don't know if you are such impacted as me, but I'm seeing here a scuba diver with a scuba tank and a spear fishing, doing spear fishing. And this is really impacting, and sometimes some locals were doing that. They were catching like wherever they want, without, not for really a need, more for the fun of it. So they were not really, there is no fish market or anything like that. So it was not for consumption either sometimes. So this is really important, you know, to try to engage with these people that sometimes it's really, you know, difficult, because maybe you don't share that, you know, that passion for fishing or things like that. And try, so what we created was, there was already created before I arrived, but we were working on the Inshore Fisheries Advisory Council to help to increase the public awareness and define monitoring and management strategies for inshore fisheries. Some of the fishermen and fisherwomen, actually, you know, there's also a positive part, is that they were very engaged for that, and they were actually contributing to this council. And they were doing actually quite sustainable fisheries, because they was just fishing with a fishing line, and you know, they catch sometimes like the big tuna that we can see there from the rocks, actually, which is really, really impressive. And I went with them also to fish with them, to learn with them, and it was a really interesting experience. You can wait there for hours and maybe catch something, but maybe not. And sometimes they release it, sometimes they take it. So there is no much side damage on that. Then other important thing is to invest with the schools and the local community. As I said, there was only one school, but most of the kids and the families, they were afraid of the ocean because there have been some shark attacks. And then being afraid with the ocean in a place where you barely have, you have mostly ocean surrounding you, and you don't have anything else to do. Some adults, they go to drink because they don't have else to do. And it's important to engage, starting with the kids, starting with the younger generations that can be our future environmental advocates. And they can also engage the family in that. So that was really, really motivating experience to do these activities with the school, to see in the species, in this case, in their tidal habitat. And then, yes, they were so motivated to learn more marine science and the environment that they are surrounding them. Then other thing to consider is the lack we have in many places. I think this is quite common to have this lack of resources, but in resources I mean a bit of everything. I mean, from local capacity with multidisciplinary skills. So sometimes, in this case, it was quite a small team, and mainly with a biology or ecology background. They were really, really capable for biology or ecology, but maybe there is a need of other skills such as social, economical, and other type of skills. And as well, of course, to have the economical resources to sustain that team, that local team, or technical or expertise outside. And in this case, we have quite a lot of expertise outside from the University of Exeter, or from the government, etc. And also, but I think it has also have a lot of potential, this island, to to be like a research center, also developing these research facilities for to promote also science to come. So, but it all depends on the objectives of the marine protected area, no? But this could be one of them. You could maybe focus on the sustainable tourism, or you could focus maybe on have a research center as well, not attracting many scientists and keep it known, because not many people know it. So talking about, summarizing a bit about the challenges and opportunities, we were talking about a bit of the challenges of the remoteness and some of the opportunities. But for that, for reaching this, you need skills that they are necessary, that they are interdisciplinary, and maybe they are out of our original training, we can say. So this is something like the training that you are doing right now. I think it's really great, or the training that I did before. So I will talk a bit about now. So then we need you or people like you, properly trained with these skills. And some of them that I think they were more relevant, but we can discuss about this later, were leadership. To have leadership involves many things, no? But I think it's important to be a leader and also co-leadership. So that is more than one leader, and you don't share only that role, no? And this is really important to be a good listener as well. Communication skills are extremely important, to communicate with the stakeholders and try to understand their point of view, and to communicate your science also to them in a proper way that they can understand. And it's attractive as well. So all these stakeholder engagement skills, I think when I found, best is to try to be neutral, and sometimes it's hard. So when you come from a background that you want to also to kind of impose your ideas or your ideas taken into consideration, but if in case you are doing a stakeholder engagement process and you have the neutral, somebody has to be neutral there to try to consider everyone's opinion. And I learned a lot about psychology during these last years. And I think, it's important, because there are different personalities. So some people like to talk more, some people less. So you need to include all the different opinions. And it's a kind of more challenging, but it's very interesting. It's all this social science. Also business and economics, and marine protected area and protected area is actually business. So you need to know how to run a business in all the ways, and to try to, if it's self-sustainable, much better if you manage to achieve that. Okay, I will talk about a bit about our network. So I hope you are still there. And if I don't hear anything, I guess yes. And so I will talk about how our network is a Mediterranean Collaborative Leadership Learning Forum, and it started in 2015. And now we are still running it. I was part of the first cohort, and that's when we learn all these skills that I think they are really necessary for working in the marine protected area or the protected area. So it was a mix of workshops, webinars as well, and practical in the Mediterranean marine protected area. And the most interesting part of this project is that we develop our skills, but we also transfer our skills. So now we are learning to be mentors of the new cohort that started later, and it will be going on as like that. And this is some statistics that our colleague Emma did, just a questionnaire. So which skills we learn during this process, during this training, and most of it was storytelling, that we consider is really important, stakeholder mapping, evaluation and management, message box, problem solving. So all these basic things that later we also applied to our work. And other ones will be public speaking. So communication is really, really important, as you know, and you are taking our course on communication. So presentation skills, stakeholder engagement, facilitation skills. So all these, these to me complementary to your original training, and you applied for your current job. What we are doing now is organizing. It has been delayed because of the virus, but we hope to restart in September. And we are doing a new training in the southern Mediterranean, and hopefully, in Tunisia. And yes, and and also training. The project is called Mojito Project, and it's enhanced integrated and sustainable management on coastal, insular and marine protected areas. So this is part of the training. I will not talk about the details, but basically we build these skills and we share these skills that we think is necessary, such as leadership styles, values, stakeholder engagement, and problem solving as well, etc. Somebody have a question? Okay, we are almost finished. So if you want, we can ask at the end, or if you have any questions now, I'm happy also to answer.
Yeah, I don't see any questions, Patricia, none in the chats.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. So this also helped me actually to develop a marine environmental consultancy and these skills. And I think it's really useful to connect more with the society and to engage different stakeholders to solve our common problems in the ocean and to find solutions together. So mainly it's working on consultancy, awareness campaigns, also with companies, and on plastics, for example, environmental scientific communication, and also we organize webinars and scientific talks and workshops, etc. So to summarize, I think we need these people really skilled with different skills, but you don't need to have it all. You can actually work as a team. Like when you are playing chess, you have different pieces with different values, but different movements, different skills that they have, but all work coordinated together. So this is how you reach your goal. Thank you so much. And I don't know, yeah, I think we have some time still. As I told you, Neil, I wanted to put a short movie that is like 3.5 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
That's okay? Are we still on time?
Yes, absolutely, Patricia. Just one quick question. Josea is asking, is the program available in French? Or is the working language English?
The leadership, this one, the Mediterranean Collaborative Leadership Learning Forum. Okay, that's a really good question. Actually, we run it in English, but we have many French speakers. And actually, in the second group of leaders that were selected, some of them, they didn't know to speak English. So what we did is to hire for our trainings, we hired translators and interpreters. And they were really good interpreters. We had 2 of them, and they were translating the English to French, actually. So we opened that, of course, because Mediterranean, what it has, we are different cultures, different languages, is very rich on that. So we need to take into consideration that not everybody speaks English. So we try to adapt. I personally, my French is not so good. I would like to improve it. I speak some French, but not so good. So there's something that we also will consider, and this is one of the reasons why we delayed our next workshop, because we were thinking to do it a webinar online, but it was going to be more challenging because of the language barrier. So we thought it was better to postpone it, but maybe we find another ways to do it online also with the language barrier.
Yeah. 2 more questions have popped up, Patricia. Another language one, is the course available in Spanish?
Not right now, but I'm Spanish, so that should not be difficult also to run it in Spain if there are enough people interested. So right now we are focusing on organizing that training, so that will be a matter to ask me what do you need, and then also think about developing also the course, translating all the slides and everything into Spanish.
Yeah, very good. And Jose has come back and said she's in West Africa and says there's a big need for such a training in that area. So she's very keen to connect.
Okay, so, that's fantastic. So I really like to work outside of Europe. I have a lot of experience working outside of Europe, actually. So very happy. I will give you afterwards my contact, and I will be happy to discuss the possibilities of doing something like that in your country.
Excellent. And yeah, for sure, you know, the presentation will be available as well for download.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that's registered for the webinar, and even those that registered but weren't able to attend, will be able to access a copy of the presentation. So,
Mm-hmm.
yep. Maybe if
Fantastic.
you want to show the little video now, we certainly have
Yeah.
time. Yep.
If you want, and if later we have more questions, and afterwards I would
Yep.
put the challenge, that is this one, but I will wait for putting the video. So this is a video that my colleagues, actually, we were doing all of us. We did 4 different ones, but I like more this one for this case, for the one that my colleagues did. It's very, we can say, idealistic idea how a stakeholder engagement process will work in an ideal, ideal world, but it's good also. It's made without language barrier, we can say, because they don't talk, and so I hope it's understandable for everyone, even non-English speakers. So I will put it, and okay. Hope you like it.
Everybody's complimenting your acting skills, Patricia.
I was not the one acting, actually. My colleagues
And
were.
Diego
I
says,
think I
nice
made that
role
one.
playing,
Yeah.
Patricia.
But I also like to, but not in that time. But we also, in our workshops, actually, they are quite dynamic, and we also do this kind of things, you know, for the people to be, we can say, so these breaking icebreakers things. So we sing and we do different things. So yes, now of course we can answer any questions that you have, but also I would like that you share your protected area and your marine protected area challenge. How do you overcome the challenge, or how do you think you can overcome the challenge, and which skills do you think your MPA or PA staff needs to cope the challenge? So I open the floor for you, the seat for you.
Yep, that's in fact one of the questions here as well from Roger. He said, what are the challenges to setting up an MPA? So I think everybody has the same question, but yeah, it'd be interesting to hear if anybody has any proposals or answers or some solutions. And maybe whilst we're thinking about that, Patricia, there was also another 2 questions, in fact, whilst the video was showing. One from Juan, who says, how do people deal with rubbish and wastewater on Ascension Island?
Yes, that's also a challenge. I didn't mention it, but it's a challenge, of course. Yeah. So we were doing actually a lot of outreach initiatives on that with the school and with the local people, because there is actually dump there that everyone is actually quite annoyed about it, because everything is thrown there. There is no, the only thing that they recycle by the moment are the tins that they pack it. So there's a separation, okay, the tins, and they send it away. But in any place in the world where they're so remote, it's really, really challenging to manage that, to manage the, so on a personal way, for example, I was trying to consume as less plastic as possible. Sometimes it's really difficult because everything is imported. There is no, almost no natural resources there, so everything is imported. There is like 2 hydroponic facilities with some lettuce and tomatoes, but that's it. No more fresh fruits or vegetables. So everything has to be imported, and mainly is wrapped with plastics and things like that. So then all of these, yes, it's quite a big problem. So yes, we were working through that, but of course it's more challenging in these remote places.
Yeah, it's especially when it's such a remote island. You know, the cost of bringing everything in by either sea or air must be quite phenomenal. And then, of course, everything that comes in has to also go out in some shape or form. You know?
Yeah. On a positive way, there is very limited inhabitants, so 800. So still, you know, it could be bigger the impact if it would be more, but I think there is still a lot to do, and to do individually and collectively on that.
2 other questions, Patricia, sorry, just whilst they're popping up here. Muna asks how the Marine Protected Area law is enforced around Ascension Island.
Maybe just one thing, maybe we can stop sharing the screen so we can go to the plenary view again. It makes it more personal.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so
Hopefully everybody's got a note of the questions. So
wait a second. Yes, while I'm first, we'll stop this. I don't know how to take this out.
I will do it. I will do it for you.
Okay, can you do it for me? Yes, thank you. I don't want to mess up. Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, great, fantastic. So you were saying, there was a question asking, who was asking that?
Muna.
Muna, okay, Muna. You were asking, if I recall good, is how is enforced the marine protected area? How this is? Yeah, so this is actually a bit, you know, challenging. You still have to think both ways. So you have to think also at we can say bigger scale, so larger scale. We are talking about the whole marine protected area and how the commercial fishing is completely banned. So, you know, there are some persecutions if somebody does it. So this is a long process, but still, you know, there's something that it works like that. So it's forbidden. And on a local level, there is still some regulations to be taking place. So as I say, we were working on engaging the locals, people that is living there, doing a stakeholder engagement meetings, and to also first to find out what do they catch? What is the size that they catch? So to monitor all of this, so we can establish some regulations on the minimum catch on all this. But first, we need also the data at the same time. So working both ways. So one part is, we can say, on a more larger scale, we can say, so we can say commercial fishing that is banned, that is tracked through satellite data, and the other one, it will be more on the local level on the proper, we can say, island.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Patricia. Just a couple more questions. People are getting active now. The creative ideas are flowing. What about the how in the times of the coronavirus, how are the local economy generating income, given that there's no tourists there? So is there perhaps a risk that they go for the less sustainable fishing practices?
Yes, so if you're talking about Ascension, in the case of Ascension, there's not, I don't think it's such a big difference because there is almost no tourism. There was no tourism before. So the people has a contract or they are military, so they work for the government, and they basically import everything and they buy this a couple of small supermarkets. So they don't depend on the fish actually for eating. They barely eat fish actually. It's quite surprising in an island like that, but mainly they eat meat or vegetables and things imported. We can say, if we go out of this case study that is quite particular, I think this is going to be quite a big impact in other MPAs, in other marine protected areas that they depend on the tourism economically, to sustain. So actually there have been done some studies. I didn't have time to go very deep on that, but they are starting to do some studies on the impact in these marine protected areas for the lack of tourism. At the same time, it could be a benefit for an ecological point of view, but for an economical point of view, so sustainable over long term on these areas, so they can be, like the global economy is impacting to the whole global economy. So of course to these places as well.
Okay, thanks, Patricia. Another question from Mallory in the Philippines, saying there's a huge need for marine protected areas there. But of course, Mallory's point is that although the MPA managers do exist, they're generally not from a marine science or fisheries background. They're more, I guess, generic managers. So that kind of flips the skill set onto the reverse of what you were saying, Patricia, because it takes both, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Completely agree. I was talking more from my view because I'm a marine scientist, so that skills I took it for granted, we can say, in the talk. But of course, it's need of this capacity. When I'm talking about capacities of everything, if you don't understand how the ecological connectivity, for example, that if you protect an area, can be, a resource of larvae and adults to another area. So that's one of the reasons that you can protect that area. So all this knowledge comes from expertise, and you need to share that and to have a team that is very capable of that. Yeah, but what I found in the marine protected areas, it was more the opposite in the places that I worked. Yeah. So there was more skills on the ecological part, the biological part, but there was a lack of the other. But of course, it's a complement. You need to have that skills. Yeah.
No, I think that's a really interesting comment, and it's true what you say, that it's often a team-based approach, because no one individual can be super gifted.
Okay.
Psychologist, ecologist. Yeah.
A superhero, no. We need many superheroes.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I guess the fundamental skill everyone needs, or the common skill set that everyone needs, are communication, the interpersonal skills, the ability to sort of mobilize the talents and individual skill sets of the team so that you contribute towards a common or shared objective. And I think that's critical.
For a manager, they need to have that view, you know, that multi-skill approach, and be interested in the different things in economy, ecology, so all these, so they have a team that properly has all the skills needed.
Yeah. Good. Two other questions. One that came quite a while ago, and I want to mention it before, so I don't forget. Loretta from Albania, the site that she works on has a functioning military base. So she was just asking, how do you make an approach to engage the military in the sort of shared management, the co-management?
Yeah, that's challenging. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but you need to have people skills. I think at the end, doesn't matter if it's military, if it's government, we are all people. So you need to approach it like, I was actually quite getting on well with the local community where I was there. And even though, you know, I was a foreigner, I was well accepted, and I was the only Spanish in the island. So for me, it was challenging because most of them were British or from the US. So for me, it was more the cultural barrier, we can say, than other things. But still, getting well with them. They actually, the military, in our case, they were very open with the government, and they invite us to parties, you know, to hang with them. And even though they were in a separate place in the base, but still, you know, there was a lot of, and these social skills are important. If you know a person a bit in the personal way, it's easier later to work with them, especially if you're in a small place like an island. So you need to try to get on well and be respectful for the others. So yes, sometimes can be challenging because of the power, we can say, you know, like especially because we were like UK, a US, a military in the same island, the same tiny island. So that was like a bit challenging, but still, you know, they were very willing to collaborate, and they were offering us quite a lot of resources, because they can provide quite a lot of resources in a technological way or technical way. So it's really useful also if you can manage, if in that case she can manage to collaborate with them.
And that's really good and valuable advice, Patricia. I know from previous experience, not within the marine environment, but the terrestrial environment, there's actually quite a lot of projects which are collaborative between nature conservation organizations, whether they be governmental or non-governmental, and the military, you know, the Ministry of Defense, because they are such a huge landowner.
Yeah, and they have so much also data that many times it's private, but maybe some of it they can share it as well. So there's a lot of it's very useful to collaborate. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. And then a question here, which is quite succinct, but probably challenging to answer. Has any work been done to link marine protected areas and nature-based solutions? So that's from Tommaso, and that's maybe in terms of some of these the green solutions that, you know, are available from the bacteria, etc., in marine protected areas.
Okay, not in this, as far as I know, not in Ascension yet, but as technologically it's not so much developed, but we can say that so we work in very basic things such as monitoring with a fisherman or things like that. But of course, you know, it has a lot of potential, and is also the future to have also more technological MPAs. I don't know how to call it, but yes, to use the nature for the technology, and yes, like, I don't know, aquaculture facilities or different things, different benefits that you can have in an MPA. So that's for sure. But if the person, Tommaso, you say, if can give, maybe he has an example that he has been working on, I will be very happy to hear about it.
Yeah. Tommaso, the ball is back to you in your court. If you have any specific example, you can share that information with Patricia, and maybe do some collaborative work together.
Yeah, sure.
Very good, very good. Okay, I'm just looking at another question.
I don't know if it's possible to open the micro, like if anyone wants to talk and give an experience on the protected area, that would be also great,
Yeah,
to be a bit more interactive
absolutely.
two ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. If anyone wants to mention an example or talk about the specific challenges within your marine protected areas and how you address them.
Hello.
Hello. Who are
Yeah.
you?
Hi. I'm Samir Bashush from Algeria.
Hi.
And also expert from Western Mediterranean Initiative. My question is so simple. I was just asking, how is the link between marine protected area and marine spatial planning?
Sorry, what is the question? I didn't hear it good.
How is the link between the protected marine areas and the marine spatial planning?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, if I understood more or less what you meant. So with the spatial planning, we are delimiting areas for different management activities, no? So then in our case of the Ascension Island, we didn't establish any mapping, we can say, yet. But of course, this is something that is really, really useful because some stakeholders, they use one area in the case of the fishing, for example. Some others, they use it for leisure, they go to the beach and they do other uses. So it's very important to take into account all this. And actually there is a study done also on the more, we can say, cultural aspects. So how do they use the island, the locals, if they use it for leisure, for work, and what are the uses. So that's really important to map these activities. Right now, there's nothing implemented yet in this particular case, but it's something that is important to be done in other places, and that one as well, of course. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, that's good. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe if anybody has any other comments about the sustainable development side of things, there's quite a few questions which are appearing in the chat, all related to how do you reconcile, local economies with the pressures of tourism and do that in a sustainable way. Be interested to hear if there's any particular examples within a marine environment that have, I don't know, whether there's good codes of conduct or practices that you would be willing to share with each other.
Yeah, that would be great. If anyone wants to share their experience in the marine protected area, as I say, the challenges, and don't be shy.
No, don't be shy. I know that in Europark, of course, we have the Sustainable Charter for Tourism. Mm-hmm. So that offers a model for sustainable tourism and sustainable development.
Mm-hmm. I have an example. I don't know if you heard about it, Chagos Marine Protected Area.
Yeah.
I never worked there, but I think it's a very interesting case study where they have developed this ecotourism in that island, and they are self-sustained with the tourism, with sustainable tourism. The income of the monitoring and management of the marine protected area comes from the tourists. So I think that's a good model to follow. It's not up to every place, but that could be a good model for some MPAs.
No, very good. I mean, if anybody has any particular case study that they would like to mention, not only within the webinar, there is also the opportunity to provide a case study within the Europark website. Mm-hmm. We have a library of case studies. So, if you're a bit shy and don't want to tell us right now, you always have an opportunity to share any particular case study information via the website. Maybe that's easier. But Juan, I
That
think
would be
you
great.
wanted
Yeah.
to say something.
Yeah, just to share one like maybe good practice about the ecotourism. And I work as a biologist in Gorgona National Park in the Eastern Pacific in Colombia. And the national park system create the possibility to visit this island, because that island was at the very beginning a prison. It was jail, and it was handed by the Ministry of Justice to the Ministry of Agriculture. And then in the Ministry of Agriculture, they start working as a national park, I would say. And then for visiting the island, since it was very natural and pristine area, there was like 3 areas in the island. One with a primary forest, never had been touched, that area on the northern part of the island. In the middle, there was the town and the jail facilities. Now they change everything for accept tourism, and then the southern part. But to arrive to the island, they establish to any people to arrive to this island and a custom, and then you have to open your backpack and then show to the authorities everything you bring, and then you make a list out of that. And then when you go out, you have to take the same number, for instance, of plastics back to you and go back. And this practice lasts almost 6 months. However, the pressure and the unpopular facility for entrance was a big pressure to eliminate this practice. But for management purpose, it was very useful, this tool. And maybe now it could be handled in another way, but it's just an idea to share.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Juan.
that's great. To involve the local community to do this is really important, and the tourism as well. Yeah, tourists.
Yeah. Very good. There was a question another question from Roger, which popped up. Let me see if I can find it, but it was to do with the target for 2040, I think. And to cover 50% of the ocean with MPAs by 2044. And it's an open question, not all at Patricia, but so, what do you think collectively? Do you think that this is realistic? And if so, what would be the most important step to take to make progress towards that target?
I believe if anyone wants to answer, and I also have my opinion, but it would be great to hear others.
No, everyone's really shy.
Okay. We'll say my modest opinion then. I'm quite optimistic actually, but I think it's hard to reach this target, but we need to be a bit optimistic on that. And now there is a lot of movement on that, and especially now for the marine environment, more and more people is aware that we need to protect our oceans and to have a sustainable management. And as I say, for me, it should be all the oceans should be sustainable managed. But if at least you manage to reach that goal, creating, it has to be a combination of, right now it's like half and half of a smaller scale marine protected areas and larger scale marine protected areas. So now if we, actually the countries, they have set up a target between 10 and 30% of the territory. So if every country like arrives to an agreement and they try to set, you know, these targets also individually, but at the same time collectively, and having these big MPAs, we can reach that. So that's my opinion, but I say I'm very optimistic. But we're working through that. All of us are working through that with the marine protected areas.
Exactly.
It's good to have a goal and a target to reach, you know. And then,
exactly what I was just going to say, and I think the targets, that's the purpose of targets, to be ambitious. You know, we should be pushing ourselves to try and achieve these targets. Okay, in the terrestrial world, that experience is a bit disappointing, shall we say, but still, nonetheless, we need to be continuously ambitious to try and push ourselves forward and not retroactive at all.
That's great. I'm seeing some questions, but I didn't read them all. I see this in the message box. There are some questions, but if there is any question that we don't answer, I imagine there is a way that you can forward them to me by email and I can answer them later.
Absolutely. We can, as part of the recording process, we can also share the chat. So you have a printout of the text in the chat. Roger, though, says, thanks for the answer. Really appreciate the webinar. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. And offers of some networking from Munya in Parks, Canada. If anyone in the group has worked on indicators, especially for the coastal marine community, would be interested to connect and share.
Okay, that's really good. Yeah, I personally have a colleague who was working and is working now on indicators, so that will be, I will forward.
And Martina has a question. How many employees are in this big MPA? I'm assuming she means the one in Ascension Island. And are they local or yeah?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's actually a very small team. Right now there is the director and then there's 2 staff. And then sometimes they come some experts, but this is the marine part. Then the terrestrial part are also working on the turtles because there is a particular team only for turtles because there is a lot to monitor. They have volunteers coming over and we can say it's around 10 staff, something like that. So it's quite a small team, but they are really efficient and really motivated. So they work quite good. But as I say, mainly working on more ecological and biological aspects. So sometimes they hire experts and they have also expertise from abroad and from the UK. All the team actually from the government, they are UK. They are from the UK. As there is no prepared, we can say local. Some of them they come from St. Helena, and the St. Helena we can consider maybe more locals because they have been there even more years. And then there is also some staff also from St. Helena, but mainly they are from the UK. So I think this is also something important to consider when you have a team, to try to not only multidisciplinary but also multicultural, so you can tackle different aspects and not having only one view, because sometimes the culture can play a strong role. So if it's a team that is open and you have people from abroad that maybe can bring different ideas from other places, that is very valuable.
I think it's a particular interest, especially in an island setting, because it's such a melting pot. It's such a sort of, the dynamics are really quite different, you know?
It's really interesting. I really like to work in islands, but it's very challenging always, also cultural, like it looks like there is no world outside the island, no? And when you get in there and you pass some time there, you realize of that. So it's important to open your mind and always be connected, try to be connected with the outside world.
Absolutely. And also use increasingly technology, especially because these places are so remote. You know, there's
Yeah, there we had basic problems with the internet, for example. The internet was very expensive, was satellite internet, very slow. So sometimes, you know, they have to work in these more, we can say, basic conditions, and you need to adapt.
Yeah, very good. I'm still amazed that Ascension Island is actually about the same size as Formentera.
Yeah.
That's quite a revelation for me. So unless anybody has, I think I've covered all of the questions that I've been able to see, but they were going at quite a pace. However, as I say, we will be able to export the questions as well, and with Patricia's good grace, I'm sure she would be able to reply or provide any further information. You'll receive the presentation as well. It will be available on the Europark website. So don't worry, you'll be able to access the information you need. And I know that 2 or 3 people, so thanks to Barbara, my colleague, if you have any particular interest in a certificate, Europark does issue certificates for participation in a webinar, but you can email my colleague Barbara directly, and that can be arranged. So, so before we wrap up, are there any specific other points or general comments that anyone would like to make? No. Okay, very good. Well, thank you all very, very much for your participation and also your interesting questions. And Patricia's back in the room now, so disappeared for 2 seconds. But also a huge thanks to Patricia. This has been the response to this webinar has been incredible. So, you know, your experience has been well shared, Patricia. Thank you very much. And hopefully this is the start of an ongoing opportunity for further networking and exchange, either through direct emails, but certainly through the case study app on the Europark website, etc. And some people were particularly interested in finding out more information about your training in September. Mm-hmm. So we can certainly, Europark can certainly share that information with the participants, but also put it on our website as well. So we'll be more than happy to
Yes, for sure. And they can feel free. I will share, you can share my contact with them. So feel free to contact me further, and just to increase our network and for some collaboration opportunities, for sure.
Excellent, excellent. That's what it's all about, networking and collaboration. Europark's next webinar is actually going to be in Spanish. So for the Spanish speakers, there was the question about the training in Spanish. That webinar is on the 28th of April. So you'll be able to find information about that again on the website. And if you've subscribed to the Europark newsletter, you'll receive an invitation automatically. It's led by our partner in the LIFEedu Natura 2000 project, Fungobi, or Europark Spain. And they're going to be focusing on building alliances for Natura 2000. And Barbara is going to be co-moderating and facilitating and making that webinar the big success that it's going to be. So that's excellent. So that's the 28th of April again. So, well, thank you all very, very much. This has been a really enjoyable webinar. We'll keep in touch. So I wish you all a lovely end of afternoon and evening, and hopefully we'll see you again very, very soon. And thanks, huge thanks again to Patricia.
Thanks to all. Thank you so much, Neil. Bye, bye. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.